I just feel really philosophical about the whole thing. This year, what are we? 3 months in. I don't know about you, but it's just feeling so busy again. Our social calendars are full. Weeknights are busy. There's school stuff. I don't know. I've got 3-year-old kinder homework all of a sudden. It made me start to think around, what did I say that I would do differently that I learned during the COVID time, which, let's face it, was really grueling and really hard, and none of us want to go back and are kind of sitting on the edge of our seats kind of looking at the next, is there going to be another wave? But I think I wanted to talk about this with you today because we learn a lot. Like, it was a good test around our resilience and things that we were going to do differently in our life, and I just thought it'd be good to remind ourselves.
Hello and welcome to Parenthood, conversations about life after kids. I'm your host, Leonia Kiddenor, and every fortnight I will bring you discussions about the real and raw realities of parenting, life behind the Instagram filter. Join us as we laugh, cry and bond over the organised chaos that is parenthood.
Real talk.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Real Talk, where Liv and I discuss all the trials and tribulations of parenthood. Liv, your voice probably sounds a little bit better than mine.
For the first time ever. Usually I'm the husky voice box. What have you done to yourself?
Oh, my goodness. So everyone, I am going to tell you that I'm sipping on whiskey right now, trying to get my voice back. But we are so committed to bringing this pod to your ears that we were just like, we're going to go for it and we're going to push on through. So I had a delightful weekend last weekend in Sydney visiting my sister for her birthday, and maybe gave it a little bit too big a nudge. My 35-year-old body is not what it used to be when I was 25.
6 days later. I'm proud. I'm so proud. And for once, I'm glad it's you and not me.
I think we're just tapping, it's like taking it in turns on the husky voice on the pod. Yeah. So you also went to Sydney to live without children, without hubby. Talk to me. How was it?
Well, mine was a work trip, so not nearly as fun as yours, I've got to say. But boy, wasn't the peace and quiet nice in the studio apartment, not the rat race getting out the door in the morning, not having to do dinner and rush out of the office. I don't know, it was peaceful and tranquil, which Mark said was not the case when I returned home, and he literally thrust the children at me the minute I walked in the door. So yes, very, very good. How about you? I would love to hear more about your story, because this is probably the first time that you had been away. I think I've had a couple of times. This is your first real go at it.
First real go at it while being away without hubby plus children. So Jules and I have been away together without the kids. Maybe that's why I gave it an extra nudge.
Yeah. No one waiting for you to get home before midnight.
I broke the 2 a.m. rule, Liv. Sorry.
Well, that explains the voice. That explains the voice.
It's delightful. Just being able to just hopping in the Uber, in the morning of heading to the airport and being like, oh my goodness, I only have to worry about myself. This is amazing. Really, really good. A really fun celebration. My sister organised sort of a lovely lunch one day, and then we had drinks at a bar in Double Bay, back to Double Bay, where I used to hang out on a Friday night. So
wow,
it was a lot of fun. And actually, I saw that guy from Married at First Sight. Have you been watching?
On and off.
Have you been on and off? Okay, so
which one?
He's the one with the nightmare. He's with a blonde who's an absolute nightmare, and she's the one that's
all nightmares? You need to be a bit more descriptive.
So she's the one that's like, I only date like really wealthy guys. I'm not here to like carry someone.
Yes.
Like, you know, if you're with me, then you have to have your shit together. Like, anyway, I saw him out. He had like 5 girls hanging off him. And I like pulled him aside and I'm like, we need to have a chat. Because I'm like, you know, I really liked you on the show. I'm like, tell me about behind the scenes with this nightmare girl. Although, to be fair, I have to say, a friend of a friend went on maths and she said it does depend on your edit big time. So you can be saying things, but then the producers will start scripting it going, okay, well, you're now the devil. So we're going to capture all the devilish comments and then mush that together and make you out to be this character, which you may not be.
It's funny you say that. I was actually listening to a similar interview about this, about maths from the other Liv, the Liv who's starring on it, who is the person this season who has said a whole heap of devilish stuff. But she, you know, was owning a lot of it to her credit, because I think she's embarrassed watching it back and perhaps seeing some of the things that she wishes she hadn't done. But, she was saying that she might have said one comment and then another comment 2 days later, but they would edit it together even if it was completely unrelated. And, you know, of course, we as viewers watch that and go, what a SHIT human. And it's, it's unfair. But, I mean, when you go onto those shows, you got to know what you're signing up for.
That's right. Watch what you say. Say less is best in one of those
like
situations.
These podcasts, like you never quite know what's going to come out, and we just hope for the best.
The good thing is we have editing control, so that's a benefit.
True. Do not make me out to be the evil one.
So today we are talking all things what COVID lockdown taught us, and it's been a really interesting just to reflect It's been really interesting just to reflect and also to reach out to our community on Instagram too and see sort of what the key lessons are. And I think this was a great one, Liv. You came up with this topic. Tell me, so why? What sort of made you think about it?
I just feel really philosophical about the whole thing. This year, what are we? March, probably April by the time that we release this. But 3 months in, I don't know about you, but it's just feeling so busy again. You know, our social calendars are full, weeknights are busy, there's school stuff. I don't know, I've got 3-year-old kinder homework all of a sudden. There's a lot of things, and it made me start to think around, what did I say that I would do differently that I learned during the COVID time, which, let's face it, was really grueling and really hard, and none of us want to go back and are kind of sitting on the edge of our seats kind of looking at the next, is there going to be another wave? But I think I wanted to talk about this with you today because we learn a lot. Like, it was a good test around our resilience and things that we were going to do differently in our life, and I just thought it'd be good to remind ourselves as things start to feel like, I don't know, certainly for me, I just feel like I've been spiraling out of control lately. And this was a way of having some therapy with you, Lee, and trying to commit to ourselves what we were going to do differently. And I think the thing that I always said was, I'm going to do less. I'm going to make sure that Sundays are empty and that I'm not out every Friday and Saturday. And, have the perspective of, it's a real privilege to have really special family time. So it's those sorts of things that I think we kind of just need to go back to.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I totally agree. Sorry, everyone. I feel like everyone's switching off now. They're like, nah, stuff this. Leonie's killed it for us.
Her dulcet tones are gone. 2 weeks in a row of husky voices.
Oh, my goodness.
This is real talk. This is you can't get any more real than this, right?
That's it. No, I could not agree more. And I think, there's so many things that I'm so much more grateful for as well, i.e., even having the opportunity to travel and to meet, to be out and to have a great time and to have a husky voice the next day and all the things that we sort of missed. I mean, I think I'm definitely an extrovert where I get my energy from others. Liv, I'd say you are, but are you? What do you think?
I really do get recharge from being with people, but I definitely need my own time too. And I've probably realised that more as, in the last probably 5 years, that I just need time and space to myself to work through whatever is going on in my mind at that point. But being back in the office is fantastic, and, I'm appreciative of that now. Yes, working from home has been fantastic, and we're so lucky that there are new flexible ways of working. Thank you, COVID, that's really forced the hand of so many businesses. But, now I'm happy to have a couple of days in the office and a couple of days at home, and thankful that Mark also is doing that, which I think pre-COVID, there's no way in hell he would have worked from home. I definitely feel like I would have been doing the line share and pickups and drop-offs and making it work, whereas now he's saying, God, it's so good to be at home and help with dinner and bath the kids and be a present dad rather than walking in the door at 6:30 dad.
100%. I think that's been a big one. And I think I put the question out there to our audience, who now has looked at more flexible working arrangements since lockdown. 76% of people have said, yes, that's me. So I'm curious, because Liv, you're in HR. What has the expectation of the workforce been since lockdown?
We've said to our staff, swings and roundabouts, you're all adults, you make your own call, but we would think that you would spend the majority of your week in the office. So if you're a full-time employee, that would mean that you do 3 days in the office, give or take, and 2 days at home, which people are pretty happy with. If they want to do 5 days in the office, which there are absolutely a group of people, particularly some of our younger, I work in a law firm. It's really important for young lawyers to be supervised and hear the conversations with their partners and collaborate. So our younger guys are probably itching to get into the office a little bit more, whereas some of the old timers and the mums and the dads are saying, well, I could probably do 3 days at home. So we're leaving it to teams to kind of feel empowered and individuals to make it work. And as long as the job gets done and culture's intact and, people are learning, then we're happy to just kind of let it lie. So, and I think that's fairly consistent. There are some businesses that are not having those sorts of guidelines and are kind of just empowering all. There are some businesses that have said, what COVID? Get back to the office, people. My view has always been it's just going to work itself out, and it's very individual, and it's a bit of a slow burn. People are still, quite anxious about coming back into the office, whether it's public transport or, whatever else it might be. But, the rate of return has really picked up, in the last couple of weeks particularly. We haven't noticed business as normal.
Yeah, we even noticed it when we were out a few weeks ago, Liv, on the Friday night. It was pretty buzzing, the city. It's kind of not quite back to normal, but it's almost there. Certainly one of the advantages of having had that experience. So if we delve a little bit further into what we learn about ourselves, one thing for me is around how to best manage anxiety. And I think it's one of those ones as well where we didn't have the opportunity to leave the house, to have the social interactions, to be in the office, to come back to the home and kind of just have that separation. Everything was happening at home. And for those listening, Liv and I are in Melbourne, and I think we had the longest lockdown in the world.
In the world.
In the world.
Most number of days. Ridiculous.
So
feels like a distant memory, doesn't it?
Yeah. There's actually, oh my God, there's this really funny TikTok. I'll put it up this week. And it's this guy who's like chopping cucumbers, and his son's like, oh, Dad, can you tell me a bit about the year of, we're learning about history, and it's 2040. He's chopping cucumbers, and he's like, we're learning in history about the year 2020. And the guy stops chopping, looks up and like drops the knife, and is just like, shock horror. And I'm like, oh my God, it's going to be us. Like, oh, don't talk about 2020.
It was a bad time.
That year was bad times. And it does feel like a distant memory. But not having the separation, not being able to just remove yourself, being able to, at one point we couldn't even leave a 5K radius from our homes,
I mean, for you typically, you like structure, you like to be control. There was so much uncertainty. Are there things that you reflect on maybe personally that you feel better about having more uncertainty or less control, or is it still an anxiety provoking thing for you?
I think that's what it was. It was so anxiety provoking because day to day I couldn't plan. I'm such a planner. I didn't know, what was going to happen next. None of us did. I think it made me reflect though, and I thought to myself, okay, well, what can I control? That was sort of the big lesson for me. If I can't control whether I'm able to leave my 5K radius or what's going to happen tomorrow or whether I get COVID and what that's going to look like, then what can I control? And I can control things like, a bit of structure around the house or what I'm eating or my exercise routine or, little things to sort of put myself in a better headspace. And so I think that was the way I looked at it, but I really struggled from that perspective. What about you? Like, did you find the uncertainty like very nerve-wracking, or how did you go?
Yeah, I just remember feeling like, when is this going to end? Less about the uncertainty. I just felt so trapped, I think, is the feeling that I reflect on now. I can be a homebody, so I mean the 200 and something days was definitely excessive. Yeah. But, we both had young babies. We were doing, we've got a really good support communities around us. So, yeah, I don't think I struggled as much as others, but I think the thing that I reflect on most is, it's the smaller things. It doesn't have to be the big things that you control. It can be the smaller moments of baking that sourdough loaf or the banana bread when everyone was going through that, or ordering the providore that everyone got into too. Just finding, so much happiness and calmness in the smaller moments rather than the big life-changing, rushing to work, activities that, seem to take up so much of our life. So that's something I kind of want to reflect on too. Just focus on the small stuff, like just, the things that happen every single day that bring joy and happiness to every member of our family, rather than thinking that we have to be winning something all the time.
Yeah. So, I remember we moved down to Safety Beach, to my parents' beach house. Our accommodation where we live in the city is a bit small, and so we moved down here for a bit more space. And I remember one day we did order. So I think one of the main restaurants, I don't know, like a Chin Chin or something, was doing an order to the Mornington Peninsula. And Jules and I were like, oh, my God, we have to get on that. And I remember all day on the Friday, I knew the order was coming. I was so pumped for that order. And then it's like Chin Chin arrived at our doorstep, and like it was like Christmas for me. And as you said, the smallest things, right?
I lived for Hot Dub Time Machine, like his Hot Dub at home. Every Saturday night, everyone knew that I was on there trying to get a selfie to get up on the screen. I lived for that. Like that was, and it made me happy dancing around my living room. So why can't we do other random stuff like that now when we feel like, the world's being a bit crazy or work stressful or we're just feeling a bit flat? It's just go back to the small stuff that, can spark some joy. So
100%. Yeah, I totally agree with that. What about from your relationship perspective? So it was interesting. I put that out to our audience and I said, did you find that, your relationship grew stronger or weaker due to lockdown? 76% of people said stronger.
Yeah, interesting.
So that's,
I don't know. As I said, I work at a law firm, and I saw the number of family law cases spike.
Yeah,
so
isn't that interesting? Yeah, it's kind of one or the other.
If you were on the edge in your relationship, I think it definitely forced the hand. I personally feel like I'm in the 77%. It made us stronger. We had more time to talk about the things. I think we might have even recorded that mental load episode during a lockdown or at the end of a lockdown because it gave partners, greater insight into that mental load, I think.
Absolutely.
And that, as I kind of alluded to before, that's really carried on, and we have a really good working partnership in parenting our kids, and that works. I do think it is better, thanks COVID, as a result of COVID.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think my biggest drama was around before the lockdowns and before all this happened, I just felt as though, as you were saying in the mental load episode, for those of you who haven't listened, go back and listen. It's one of our most listened to episodes. And basically I felt like I was doing all the things at home and doing all the things at work. We're obviously both very career ambitious as well, Liv. And so, you know, we're in a similar position where we're like, we're not like, we can put the bread on the table too, but we're also doing a lot of other things that seem to be have gone unnoticed by our partners, being forced to live together for so long in lockdown. Now I feel like the partners get it. They're like, oh, okay. Because you can't unsee this stuff. You're like, oh, wow, like Leonie's running around doing shopping lists.
I can see how many loads of washing you do, and I can see you folding and unfolding and folding and 100 times per week, washing the bed sheets, logging on to do some email, just literally juggling it all. It actually, and do you know what the other thing? I loved watching Mark work, I've got to say. I'd never seen him work. I'd never heard him on the phone doing what he does best. And I had a newfound respect and admiration for him too, I got to say. Like, it was like, and I'm glad we can be positive about it now, because it was such a freaking shitful time that it's nice to be like, let's find some positive silver linings, which is such a cliche, I know, and people are a bit over it. But I'm all for it. The glass is half full, people. So.
Yes. Oh, I totally hear you. And I almost I just realised that like Jules was on the phone 24/7. I think because the number of meetings escalated because people couldn't just have those, rubbing shoulders in the office conversations. It was like getting my diary to have the chat. So I was sitting there, like I'd pop my head in to say something and he's like on the phone. I'm like, cool, I'll be back in an hour. Pop my head back in. And it was like from like 8 till 6, he was like on the phone, and then he would, and this is the disadvantage, I guess, for some people in certain roles, he would start his work day in the evening because you've spent all day in meetings, conferring with people over things that would be so much more easily done if you were, in the office. But you're right. I was kind of like, oh, wow, like you are pretty busy, aren't you?
Oh, you're really good at your job. Oh, that's why you don't like talking to me when you get home, because you've been home all day. I get it now.
But honestly, but then I did find, I think the challenging bit was the reconnecting bit, because you're living and breathing under the same roof. You kind of know what they've done all day. You're kind of like, so when you sit down for dinner, I was finding, well, probably more often than not, TV's on. I don't even care. Like, not so much chat, not so much what did you get up to? I don't know. Was it the same for you?
Oh, absolutely. And you and I had this conversation over a few martinis a couple of weeks ago. But, I think coming out of it now, it does feel very same. You know, we could still be in lockdown half of the time, right? Like, we're struggling to remember to do all the things that we used to do when we were fun and COVID didn't hang around like a bad smell. So, we, since that conversation, thanks, Lee, for your therapy, have committed. So we're going out tonight, which will be fantastic, and doing a few other things just to, bring the fun back and live again.
Yes. I find the main time in which we really do reconnect is when we've stepped away from the children. Like, I think there's something to be said about absolutely go catch up with friends, have kids there. It's all fun. But often when the children are there, it is about the children, and it's really you have half a chat with your friend while they're wrangling their child, and then that's kind of it. So I really treasure the times when it can just be the two of you, or a bit of adult time just with friends as well. Yeah,
we have fallen into the bad habit of perhaps not feeling overly comfortable with babysitters. Yes. So one of us always stayed home while the other one was out having a good time. So we were never going out together. It was me going out with the girls, or Mark, to be honest, not really going out at all. So I'm like, mate, you got to go and call. I'll organise it for you.
Boys' night.
Just go, you need something. You really do. He does need that. But, now the commitment around stuff it, we just have to do this. Let's just make the giant leap and go and do the fun things together. So it starts tonight.
Did you find a babysitter?
My brother, funnily enough, which is a terrifying thought for anyone who knows my brother.
I'll have a few whiskeys and the kids will be sleeping. It'll be fine.
as long as no whiskey goes into the milk, we will be fine. But no, my parents are away, Mark's parents are away. And, I know a lot of people don't have those communities. We're lucky to do it, but we just have never done it around kind of Friday or Saturday night stuff. It's just we've alternated, whereas Nick has said, no worries, like, do I have to feed them, like change nappies? Because that's probably won't know what to do, but I'll entertain them. So I'm like, great, I'll come home at midnight and without doubt both children are still going to be awake. Yeah. But whatever, YOLO. Yeah. Mum and Dad are going out and it's going to be great.
You got to roll with it. And look, I mean, for those listening, and I think it is a kind of a cool and important topic to talk about, the whole how the hell do I get away from my children, and particularly if I don't have the family support. I'd been quite fortunate that we've been able to find friends of friends, younger sort of siblings who live in the area. But however, there was a point probably 6 months ago where we didn't have anyone to reach out to, and I went on this fantastic website. I will put it in the episode notes. I don't have it at the moment. But basically, and I was very hesitant. I was like, oh God, a website. Anyway, it came highly recommended. You can peruse the website and find people within your suburb or, surrounding suburbs. So I clicked my suburb, had a look at people's profiles. But typically when you click on a profile, you then have to pay, I don't know, $20 for the month just to access the numbers that you require. I was going through my suburb and I found a girl, and she seemed like, I was like, she doesn't look like an axe murderer. I mean, not that you can tell, but I was like,
doesn't look like she's going to ransack my underwear drawer.
And she had put in her blurb her number. So usually our website would have said, don't put it in because they need to pay to get your number. She'd put it in. So I was like, bless her soul, I'm going to call her number. I'd have a chat to her over the phone. She actually went to the same school Noah's going to. So that kind of gave me a little bit of comfort. She just finished school 2 years ago, lives down the road with her parents. I'm asking kind of the key questions as she goes to uni at Monash. I'm like, okay, I'm like, tick. I guess, you seem kind of motivated.
What bars do you go to? What's your favourite restaurant?
Literally, are you the mini version of me? And then I feel relaxed. Literally. So then what I did was I invited her over, and I invited her at a time in which I went upstairs. Now, I live in a very small townhouse, everyone, and I went upstairs to my office, which is in our master bedroom, which is not very big at all. And I have a Bunnings table that I fold out on the edge of our bed. And I sit there on my plastic chair like a boss, smashing out emails, and that's my office. Yeah, girl. And anyway, so she's downstairs with the kids, and I was like, I'll just be upstairs, as though, the house is massive, but I was literally just in the 2-bedroom, there's only 2 rooms upstairs. I was in one of them, and I kind of listened. I half had the door open. I'm listening to how she's interacting with the children. And then after about an hour and a half, I went downstairs and I said, look, do you want to go to the park opposite the road? I was like, I feel like that's kind of safe. She could take them to the park and come back. And that's how it progressed. So as they came back, I listened to their interactions. I was like, she seems kind of cool. We got talking. I knew a couple more mutual friends just randomly with her. And then from then on, and now her sister babysits for me, and also her sister's friend, because I trust those girls. I can now trust their network. So it's almost like you just have to find the one person, and then it opens up your network to multiple.
Good tip. Yeah, I definitely need to find the one, because let's all be real. There are just some occasions, sorry, Mum, that you won't want to see me come home at 1 a.m. because you may breathalyse me or do something like you did when I was 16 years old. So another good tip is ask the carers at your daycare. I know certainly at our daycare there's a handful of them who are happy to do it. There are rules, like the centre has to sign off on it and yada, 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 because, of course, there's red tape around this sort of stuff. But that's another good protocol that you could consider if you're trying to find
that's
a babysitter.
A really good one. Yeah. And I think the thing with babysitting is that it's kind of guilt-free, like what you alluded to. It's like, I'm going to get home when I get home. I'm paying, and they're happy. They know what they're in for. And it's kind of just that guilt-free. Whereas I know when family look after them, and I'm so grateful when that does happen, which is not that often, probably because I don't ask for it, because I almost prefer the guilt-free option. I'd rather pay and know that I'm not having to get home too early and all of those things. So, there's certainly a benefit. But, things to think about, because ultimately you need to invest in your relationship. I mean, Tony Robbins, when I went to his 5-day course it's called Date with Destiny. Amazing, by the way. If anyone has Netflix, watch Date with Destiny. It was like game changer. So I went to that program. Anyway, we had a whole day on relationships. And the one thing Tony said was, the one relationship you need to invest in beyond your children, he goes, I know this sounds controversial, but beyond your children is your relationship with your partner, because at the end of the day, your children will leave the nest eventually. And also, while they're in the nest, if you guys are not sort of a team and it's all, always conflict, and it doesn't make for a good home for those children anyway. So you're better off investing in your relationship above all. And I sat there going, oh yeah, like I didn't have kids at the time. I was like, oh yeah, I guess, whatevs. And now I'm like, I will never forget that. Like that is key.
And a good reminder, because we all know that for the most part, we put our kids first with every single thing they do. So you just got to stop and pause and find that time. You've done a really good job. I'm going to follow your lead and try and do, I'll start with half of what you do and then get there.
And just on that, everyone, what Liv is sort of referring to is I'll often put once a month, it's in the diary for a date night with Jules, and we'll look up, a fun restaurant that we've always wanted to go to, and we'll pop it in and we'll book it, we'll, get the babysitter in, and that's it. It's a non-negotiable. That's what we're doing. So I might not even like breathe in Jules's direction for three and a half weeks. And then we get to the 4th week of the month and then we go for a date night, and then I'm like, we're back on track.
Yeah.
So,
it
certainly helps. So I guess the last facet of all of this is what COVID taught us about our children, about, life being with our children 24/7. Liv, what comes to mind?
Stuart actually popped into my head was Tommy sneezing into his elbow. There is something that COVID has taught him. I don't know. I trust that daycares are like teaching them this, but he just nails that now. And probably then looks over his shoulder and says COVID, because that's what mum does, when we're out and about and hears someone. No, I don't do that. But I don't know. Like, we spoke about it. Like, he was kind of 2 to 3, probably through the midst of 2021 at least.
Yeah.
And he knew that there was something called COVID. He doesn't know what COVID is, but he would just say things like, COVID, go away. That was a healthy thing, because I wanted him to understand why, or at least try to understand why the playgrounds were closed and, use that. But what else has it taught me about him? I don't know. The kids are resilient, kids don't need lots of extravagant outings and activities and busyness. They just need their mum or their dad or both mums or whatever the makeup is. They just need to be loved and feel safe and be nurtured. I reckon that's another good thing to kind of remember. Already we're back into swimming lessons and sport classes and enough. Like, the kids are exhausted. So, that's another place that I'm going to go back to in terms of just trying to remember that perspective and the lessons that I was trying to, think of at the time. So,
so true.
Probably the 2 things, the sneezing and the slow it down.
So cute. So for me, a big one was, so for ages, I mean, this, Liv, that I was like, I'm not going to do childcare. I'm just going to wait till 3-year-old. And then he'll do like early learning or whatever. I don't know why I thought that. I was kind of like, I just can't be bothered.
You were terrified of the germs. Like, you were just like,
I'm a germaphobe.
Remember, like, if we catch up for coffee and Noah, this is probably before Noah was 1, and like Tammy might have like the tiniest bit of snot, and you were like literally sanitize. This is before COVID, sanitizing everything. Like, keep your child away from it. And I was just like, sister, girlfriend, you have no idea what's coming for you.
It's so true. So I always had a bottle of Dettol in my bag, like at all times. I'm like one of those people. So I wasn't down for the green runny noses. I wasn't down for it. I was like, you know what? At 3 years old, he's big enough. He should be fine. But what was interesting was during lockdown, we'd go to a park when they were open, and Noah would run in the opposite direction of children. He'd be like, I can't, I'm scared. And like a child would reach out just, to say hi or something. And Noah was in tears. And I started thinking, Jesus, this is actually affecting him. I mean, lockdown compiled compounded with the fact that he'd never been to childcare. He'd only ever really been around adults, nannies, my family, Jules's family. So it was one of those ones where I started thinking as we came out of lockdown, I don't really, like, this doesn't seem normal. He needs to know how to at least interact with children his own age.
Yeah.
Charlie was just born, similar to Harry during lockdown as well, but they were babies. So it's not like he had a sibling to play with. And childcare was the best thing that we ever did, because now he's like this very extroverted social person. But I just think to myself, that really, I think had we not had lockdown, I may have just kind of, just gone past that whole idea. And then at 3 years old, he would have gone to the ELC and maybe he would have been fine. But certainly his transition to early learning this year was a lot more seamless than what it would have been, I would have thought.
Well, and you start to see what a sociable kid Noah is too. Like, he's a lot like you in that, you can see he's energized by other kids, and he's got no fear about, embracing or chasing the kid that's, a foot taller than him.
Oh, my gosh. Can I tell you what the latest is, Liv? Oh, my God. So I go to the school ground. It was yesterday. The teacher's like, "Hi, Leonie," pulls me aside. I'm like, oh, here we go. What have I done now? He was wearing the colourful socks. There's no peanut butter in his lunch. What have I done? Anyway, so that's a throwback to last episode for those who haven't heard about the colourful socks and the peanut butter situation. But anyway, so she pulls me aside and she's like, "So we had a few incidents today with Noah," and I'm like, "Oh God." She goes, "He started licking people." I'm like, she goes, and I'm like, "Wait, licking as in like tongue out, licking people?" He's like, "Yeah." She goes, "We think it's because he gets overexcited about his friendships." And so rather than give them a cuddle, he started to lick them. Now, obviously, it's COVID and we're in a fucking pandemic. So maybe, like, if your kid could not keep
saliva fluid to a minimum.
I was like, so she goes, "It's fine." Like, so we've taken it upon ourselves to explain to him that if you are really excited by another child, you're better off just expressing that verbally. "I'm enjoying playing," or like, "You are my friend," or even maybe asking them if they can he can have a hug. But we've tried to tell him just to dial back on the licking, and maybe you can introduce that at home as well, just to dial back on it.
And you're like, no, we don't lick each other. There's no licking at our house.
This is not like a family thing. Like, have you met me? I'm a germaphobe. I'm like ready to Dettol his tongue if he licks someone. So anyway, so now it's a thing. So I take him home and I'm like, oh God, how am I going to say this in a way that doesn't, I don't want to sound
embarrass him or
totally like it's kind of a fine line. So, I often will have the serious chats when I'm like, we're getting ready for bed or whatever. And I'll be like, "Oh, Noah, so, Ainsley at school today told me that you were licking some people. Remember, we don't really lick. Like, that's a bit yucky, isn't it? It's a bit germy. Like, if you like someone, you just say, can you be my friend?" Or, I'm trying to give him a bit of language around it that the school told me. And he was like, "Yeah, yucky licking." And I'm like, yeah. Anyway, I'm hoping that sticks now, but I guess we'll wait and see.
We'll need an update. Oh, dear. I've got the visual. That's hilarious. I love it.
Has Tommy done anything that's like a little bit extra as far as how enthusiastic he is?
No, he's not a very extra child, but I think his brother probably will. But I certainly think it's a 3-year-old thing, because I've observed some. Actually, do you know what the thing that he does do when we now arrive? And separation anxiety is getting a bit better.
Oh, good.
But on days that he's actually quite excited, because he walks in with his bestie, which really helps us. To minimize that. He does like the Love Actually dance. Like, he gets so excited that he's like literally fist pumping and then they do some weird like kid language that they all seem to understand, which sometimes involves him calling me a pom-pom and then all of these little friends like laughing, and I'm like, what does that even mean? And I'm like, "You're a pom-pom." And he's like, "I'm not a pom-pom, you're a pom-pom." And I'm like, okay. So we haven't quite got licking, but we do have some really unusual dancing and name calling happening.
And isn't it bizarre like that the kids kind of get each other? Like, I noticed that with Charlie and Noah. And Charlie, my youngest, he's 2 in June, he and Noah, who's 3, you know, Charlie can't quite talk yet. He can say his words and that's it. So he'll be often pointing and be like, and like gibberish stuff and like, you do
that very well.
And then Noah's like, yeah, Mum, he just wants the book. Like, he's just over that book. He wants another book. I'm like, what?
Right.
How did you get that from like that?
Yeah,
they get
smart.
each other,
They know so much. Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah.
So I asked, to sort of wrap this up, I asked our audience, what are the things, 2 main questions, but one of them was, what did they learn from lockdown? And it's interesting because of all the responses, I've sort of categorized it in like sort of 4 key themes. One was what you've alluded to today, Liv, the ability to say no more. So, I mean, maybe something for us to remember now, as you said, as life gets more hectic, prioritizing what really matters and, you know, giving yourself a little bit of breathing room in between, I think is a really good one.
Yep.
The other one was, life's too short, just do it. Time is precious. Like kind of all that sort of thing where, you know, life's too short, mate.
Yeah.
Like
burn the really expensive scented candle. Like what are you waiting for? Go burn that candle. I've started doing that. Use that expensive hand cream that's been sitting there because you're like, oh, it's so nice. Like
honestly, all that. And funnily enough, with the life's too short bit, I'd been like obsessed with podcasts for so long. You know that, Liv, as well. And I'd always thought, oh, I reckon I could do that, like Sam's husky voice. I was like, I reckon I could do that. And, you know, lockdown happened and I was feeling really disconnected from everyone. And then I had little baby Charlie, and, you know, 4 weeks into having him, I went, you know what, stuff it. Life's too bloody short. I'm going to do this podcast idea. I'm just going to go for it because who cares? Even if like one person listens, better than none, right? And I need to know that I died with like the tank is empty by the time I'm dead. I'm so proud to say that now, like our podcast is actually doing really well, Liv. And we were
you mean people like listening to us?
Apparently. But yeah, and it's amazing because I never would have thought only a year ago, but having this little idea and then coming
and
to
it's good therapy for us too.
100%. So to all those out there who have those ideas that you're kind of sitting back going, you know what, I reckon I could do that, or I've been really keen to, but is it the right time? Just bloody do it. Like that's my tips of advice for today.
I agree.
What's the worst that can happen? Like, you know, I think give it a red hot go. The other thing that a lot of people said was life gets too busy. It doesn't need to be so full on. You know, we need to just kind of pace ourselves, take a breath, you know, and I think that sort of alludes to saying no to more and all of those things. And the last one, which is a massive one, is, you know, obviously appreciating friends and family so much more. And like even going in for that hug when you see people now, like just like crazy stuff that we just took for granted, right?
Yeah.
And then the last question I asked was, what did you miss the most during lockdown? I think a lot of people said childcare and school. I never thought I would say that, but that.
I actually, do you know what? I've blocked that out. You say that. I have blocked out that whole period. I mean, that was just daycare for us. Anyone who homeschooled, again, take my hat off to you. But it's funny, so I have totally forgotten that until now. I've clearly just said no more, no space in my brain for that.
Just like park it. So like that's a massive one. Another one was travel and even just getting on a plane. Going back to what we were saying at the start, just like being able to like get on a plane and go somewhere new, massive. Another one was doing things for me, you know, leaving the house just to have that bit of alone time where, you know, what we could maybe do that to go for a run and that was kind of it. Whereas now maybe getting your nails done or getting your hair done and those things that I think we always loved and we appreciated, but I certainly appreciate them more. And then, and community, I guess, was just to sum it up, was another big response. Just being able to reconnect and with like lots of friends that, you know, and it's not the same like saying, oh, maybe we'll send a text message here and there to a friend or have a quick video call. It's not the same as sitting down with your girlfriends or, you know, partners or whatever and having a cocktail or a coffee if that's your vibe or whatever it looks like and just kind of connecting in that way.
I never want to do another Zoom trivia or anything like that ever again. Okay, this is actually bringing up some things for me now. I actually think it's best that we finish
unresolved
this
trauma
on a God, it taught us so much about perspective, right?
Yeah.
And we have to remember that every time we get on a plane or shop in our local grocer who was shut for months and months and months, you know, really struggling to make ends meet, to, you know, baking another sourdough or whatever it's going to be. I am going to remember. It's all about the small things.
100%. All right. Well, always good to chat, Liv. We'll leave it at that. We'll speak soon.
See you guys. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and give us 5 stars if you're feeling fancy. Want to be part of the parenthood community? Join our Facebook group and follow us on Instagram @parenthoodpod. Now I'll let you get back to the organised chaos. Until next time.